Hello, everyone, and welcome to Davenant Discussions. My name is Ben Miller. I'm here today with Dr. Brad Littlejohn, the president of the Davenant Trust, and we are discussing the four core ideas or pillars of Davenant's mission. We've identified four words that capture those pillars: reason, retrieval, engagement, and essentials. And today we're discussing the fourth of those, which is essentials. Now, to sort of set up what we're talking about, when we're reasoning about the world and retrieving the riches of the Christian heritage and engaging in the public, in society, in the public sphere, we very quickly discover that there are certain things that Christians believe and moral standards that we adhere to as Christians that are essential, which is to say, you stop believing that, you stop adhering to that, you really cannot self-identify as a Christian anymore. But then there are many other areas of belief and practice where reasonable Christians and just reasonable human beings can differ. Which may sound like an obvious point, but why is that pretty important to Davenant's work and mission?
Well, I think when you look at the landscape of contemporary Christianity, the conservative Christianity in particular, a lot of young people grow up with this long list of things that these are key things you're supposed to believe. You're supposed to believe this whole long list of truths, right down from the divinity of Jesus to the details of the rapture. And you also have a long list of kind of to-dos of how you should behave as a Christian. And they don't really have a sense of how these hold together exactly. It's a package deal. You're supposed to believe all these things.
There's no pecking order either. It's just
right. And so what happens is when you encounter opposition, you either, a minority, the stubborn types will dig in and try to defend every point of the line with equal stubbornness. But more often, Christians will just say, well, they'll just start, whatever things are most culturally unfashionable right now, they'll just start throwing them overboard without really examining what they're throwing overboard. Well, our list of beliefs is too long, let's trim it down. And what both of those lack is any kind of intellectual method to discriminate between what's essential, what's non-essential, how do these things hold together, what beliefs are foundational, are core, and which ones are built upon those, which ones are derived from those by a short chain of reasoning, a long chain of reasoning, by prudential application. All these steps which can introduce more and more room for legitimate disagreement.
So let's give some examples. You mentioned in the realm of beliefs the difference between, say, the divinity of Jesus, which it's not a very long step from Scripture to that. On the other hand, details about eschatology, there's a fairly long chain of reasoning to get to conclusions about eschatology, so there's more room for maybe some difference there. How about in the realm of ethics? How does the essential, non-essential distinction work out in our ethical practice?
Yeah, well, I think what you're dealing with there is that most things in ethics, when it comes down to it, can't be captured by one universal principle that's going to encompass every case. Usually, it's going to depend on a lot of concrete circumstances. So you take something really mundane like, when should you get up in the morning? Okay, there's, of course, a kind of principle, early to bed, early to rise. There's a kind of Puritan ethic in which, this is a mark of morality is to be someone who rises early in the morning. And if you are prone to laziness, then that's true. It is morally consequential that you need to start setting an alarm and making someone, get you out of bed. On the other hand, you could be the kind of person who's prone to overcommitment, overwork, who is suffering from chronic illness and not sleeping enough. And you need to be told to sleep in more. And both of those, to say there's not a one-size-fits-all answer. It doesn't just say it's open-ended. It doesn't say there's no more. It doesn't say there's no moral criteria. It's simply to say that once you start applying moral criteria, the answer might differ depending on the circumstance.
Is there a tendency in Christian circles to emphasize so much the Bible's speaking directly to our beliefs and practice? Whether someone believes that the Bible doesn't give us very many things we need to believe, or contrary to that, believes the Bible gives us a ton of stuff we must believe, or on the other hand, sees the Bible as speaking only of very, very few principles that are necessary for salvation, or necessary for Christian morality, and everything else is completely up for grabs. Or on the other hand, the Bible talks about kind of everything in the realm of ethics. Is the problem here maybe just a little bit too much exclusive emphasis on the Bible and not enough emphasis on the Bible's own really summons to just reason about things we believe in and our ethical practices?
Yeah, I mean, this is why we've talked about that a key Davenant focus is on reason, and this isn't to downplay the sufficiency of Scripture, but it's to emphasize the sufficiency of Scripture for the purposes that God gave us Scripture, which is not, I think, clearly not to give us exhaustive guidance about every question we might encounter. And I think there are Christians who so many American Christians take that viewpoint. Scripture is supposed to tell us everything we need to know. Scripture doesn't seem to tell us about this, therefore, clearly we don't need to worry about it.
Right.
Or Scripture doesn't seem to tell us about this, but we obviously need to know this, therefore Scripture must tell us about it somewhere.
Got a
So we
Bible
just
verse
got
somewhere in
to
there.
keep digging.
Right.
And what's missing there is the fact that God summons us to maturity, to exercise a critical intelligence, to be able to learn to reason, to learn to apply Scripture, to learn to look at the world around us, to learn to look at history, look at our examples of our elders, and apply all these things to be able to answer questions to which the Bible tells us that this is an important question, but it doesn't always tell us exactly what the answer would be. And sometimes the nature of a case, there isn't, as I said, going to be one answer.
So you've mentioned turning to our elders in the broader church. I mean, does that help us answer the last question I want to get to, which is who's going to decide what's essential and non-essential? It sounds like we don't get to just determine that for ourselves. We also don't have a Christian board we can turn to give us the right answer.
I mean, I think it's not an easy question, and I think often it's not clear what qualifies essential and what's non-essential. But even to frame the discussion that way, to say there is difference, and it matters, and we should be able to sort it out. To frame the discussion that way can help us deal with a lot of unnecessary debates we have. But I think we can also make a lot of progress and figure out which falls into which category just by looking at the testimony of history. If there's something that we are hung up on all the time, and we look and find our forebears in the faith got along just fine, even though they were on different sides of this question, then we should ask ourselves, is this really something essential, or have we missed something? On the other hand, there's often the case where they all took something as pretty darn important that we've just kind of thrown out, and maybe for good reason, but maybe for not. But certainly that historical perspective should help us be able to ask ourselves more clearly what is and isn't essential.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much.